African countries are rising and getting more powerful, and the Western countries that had them under their heel for so long, like the UK where I live, are on the way down and their economies are collapsing. What help do you think we're going to get from those countries that are becoming more powerful? How do you think that the Africans are going to look towards the English with regards to trade deals and buying their uranium off them if we need to? They're not going to look too kindly, are they? Especially if there's absolutely no apologies whatsoever. And as far as I can tell, this country doesn't apologise for jack shit. And the reason it doesn't apologise is because if it apologised for the stuff that it's done, it'd have to start giving back all of the stuff that it's stolen. I've spent hours inside the British Museum. That place is an absolute, it's a treasure trove. It's incredible. And it's nearly all nicked.
The British government has, like you've said, previously acknowledged and expressed deep regrets over what happened. Deep regret is not an apology.
No, so we choose the language carefully. We expressed deep regret. We said it in Parliament.
The most violent country in the world in the 19th century, by far, was perhaps the most democratic or second most democratic, and that was Britain. You can be democratic at home and ruthlessly imperial abroad. The most violent country in the world since 1950 has been the United States. It's been by far involved
Jeffrey,
in more,
stop now. Jeffrey, I'm your moderator.
The United Kingdom was once the so-called empire on which the sun never set. Today, the story is different. Economic decline, political instability, and an identity crisis after Brexit. Meanwhile, Africa, once colonized and looted by Britain, is on the rise with booming cities, young populations, and economic potential. In this video, we argue that the UK owes Africa more than trade deals and empty words. It owes Africa a genuine apology for centuries of exploitations and destructions. Let's dive in. Watch and pay attention, and I will share my thoughts later.
When this collapse comes, and it's going to come, we in the UK are going to need to have some serious reflection on mistakes that have been made, and especially our foreign policy in history. And we're going to have to rely on these nations that we've been stealing from for years to deal with us, because we need them. We're not like Russia. We're not self-sufficient. Russia has its own oil, its own food, it doesn't have to import anything. It can survive without the world. We, a tiny little island, do not have that luxury. We need to import. That's why we've stolen so much history. So what happens, do you think, in the next decade as African countries are rising and getting more powerful, and the Western countries that had them under their heel for so long, like the UK where I live, are on the way down and their economies are collapsing? What help do you think we're going to get from those countries that are becoming more powerful? How do you think that the Africans are going to look towards the English with regards to trade deals and buying their uranium off them if we need to? They're not going to look too kindly, are they? Especially if there's absolutely no apologies whatsoever. And as far as I can tell, this country doesn't apologise for jack shit. And the reason it doesn't apologise is because if it apologised for the stuff that it's done, it'd have to start giving back all of the stuff that it's stolen. I've spent hours inside the British Museum. That place is an absolute, it's a treasure trove. It's incredible. And it's nearly all nicked. And we're going to have to, in the UK, in the West, really start looking at our place in the world and really start looking as to whether we really do value the things that we say we do. I saw somebody earlier saying, you know, this is what the West do. They just play pretend. It's no wonder the West now accept a man being a woman if he just identifies as one, because we in the UK have been identifying as a nation that is on the side of law and order. A nation that values free speech as it's censoring everybody. A nation that values freedom of the press and is a shining light and a beacon for freedom of the press throughout the world, whilst it's literally torturing the best journalists the world has ever seen in its capital. We say we are these things. Our government says them all the time. The diplomats are like that. But it's just all hot air. Nothing we do as a country backs up what these people are saying the country is. Nothing. I love my country, and that's what I want my country to turn into, to be. I think it's the most patriotic thing a person can do.
The British government has, like you've said, previously acknowledged and expressed deep regret over what happened. Deep regret is not an apology.
No, so we choose the language carefully. We express deep regret. We said it in Parliament, so we said it in the most public way. We've engaged very closely with the Mau veterans who were affected, and we not only paid compensation individually, but also we helped arrange for the monument, which now sits in Uhuru Park. So we've been very open about those difficult bits of our history.
Why fall short of making an apology?
So we haven't made an apology really in any context. It's an extremely difficult thing to do. So what we think we want to do is we want to acknowledge the difficult bits of history. We want to talk about them openly, both to the countries which are affected, but also, as I say, to the individuals and communities.
What's difficult about making an apology?
So an apology starts to take you into difficult legal territory. And so, as I say, the settlement that we made was an out-of-court settlement. So it showed our sincerity and our desire and our openness about recognizing that abuses had been committed. But that was the route that we chose and was accepted by the Mau Veterans Association.
Okay. So during the visit here, their Majesties will, from the statement that was made by the High Commission, they'll acknowledge the more painful aspects of the UK and Kenya shared history, including the emergency period, 1952 to 1960. His Majesty will take time during the visit to deepen his understanding of the wrongs suffered in this period by the people of Kenya. Together, their Majesties will tour the new museum dedicated to Kenya's history and lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown warrior at Uhuru Gardens, as well as visit the site of the Declaration of Kenya's independence in 1963. The words here, to deepen his understanding of the wrongs suffered in this period. What does that mean?
So firstly, he will go to the museum, and that's where Kenya tells its own history about what happened in that period, and he'll see how it's told, but also he'll meet Kenyans who are learning about their history, school children, so he'll understand both what happened, but also how it's taught to Kenyans and how Kenyans perceive it today. The symbolism of him going to the place where the Kenyan flag was raised for the first time, and his father was present at that very important ceremony, again shows us sort of engaging very clearly and positively with that history, and there may be opportunities as well for him to meet people who can talk about how their communities were affected, or how their families were affected, or how they themselves were personally affected during the British period. And as I say, His Majesty has a very deep and sincere desire to understand these things better.
And then what? Then what after understanding? So he's going to have a deep understanding of what happened. What do you expect him to do after that?
So part of this goes back to what we were talking to CT about. So he's not the head of state. He doesn't make policy. I think he will talk about this openly, and we hope the fact that him talking about these issues openly will, for those communities and for normal Kenyans, will be an important symbolic moment. But then it's a decision for the British government to say, as we engage with a particular community or a particular group and we hear what their requests are, whether there is something that we can do to help. In many cases, their requests are actually more for the Kenyan government than they are for the British government, but we'll see if there are things that we can do.
When Britain claimed Kenya in the early 1900s, they didn't just rule it, they took it. The most fertile farmland in the country was renamed the White Highlands. And this wasn't just a name, this was law. Africans, especially the Kikuyu, who had lived there for centuries, were forced off their own soil, and entire communities were moved to subpar reserves. And if that wasn't bad enough, Britain instituted taxes on the Africans that they could only pay by working for the settlers. Hut tax, poll tax, labour tax, all of these were forcing people into wage slavery. Movement as well was tightly controlled. Africans needed passes to leave their reserves, and wages, they were set incredibly low so that people were poor and dependent on the work. This wasn't about civilization, it was about creating a permanent class of cheap labour for Britain's plantations and railways. By the 1940s, people had had enough, and political groups like the Kikuyu Central Association started demanding land and rights. And out of that frustration, the Mau Mau Rebellion kicked off in 1952, with fighters swearing secret oaths to reclaim their country. And how did Britain respond? With overwhelming violence. Entire villages were wiped out, and communities rounded up and put into barbed wire camps. And inside those camps, torture was routine. Beatings, sexual assaults, and starvation. And people were hanged after sham trials. The British official count stands at 11,000 Mau Mau people killed, but Kenyan survivors put that number higher, far higher, with a lot of civilians being caught in the crossfire. For decades, Britain denied all of this. In school books, they spoke of loyal Africans and terrorists, and the camps were airbrushed out of history. It wasn't until survivors sued the British government in 2000 that all of this information came out. In 2013, the UK government admitted what had happened and paid compensation. But even then, they called it an isolated incident and not the brutal.
Britain is struggling. Since Brexit, its economy has weakened, industries are shrinking, and living costs are soaring. Political scandals, leadership crises, and cultural divisions show a nation unsure of its place in the modern world. Once powerful, now faces decline on the global stage. The empire is long gone, but its legacy still lingers, especially in Africa. Africa has the youngest population in the world, a demographic powerhouse. Economies like Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and Ethiopia are driving innovation in fintech, agriculture, and renewable energy. The African Continental Free Trade Area is building the world's largest free trade zone. From Nollywood to Afrobeat, Africa's cultural influence is now global. Africa is no longer the dark continent Britain was portrayed. It is the future of the global economy. The wealth of was built on the sufferings of Africans. The transatlantic slave trade ripped millions from their homes, fueling British industry. Colonization stripped Africa of resources, gold, oil, diamonds, while leaving behind poverty and artificial borders. Even today, African artifacts fill British Museum, while African nations are still recovering from centuries of economic theft. But when we say the UK must apologize, it is not about pity, it is about acknowledging historical crimes. It is about acknowledging historical crimes that shaped today's inequality. An apology is not just word, it comes with action, returning stolen artifacts, investing in Africa-led development instead of exploitative deeds, supporting fair trade and climate justice, recognizing Africa not as a colony but as an equal partner. Britain cannot rewrite history, but it can choose a stand on the right side of the future. The irony is clear. The empire that once ruled Africa is now weaker, while the continent it oppressed is now rising. The balance of power is shifting. The UK must come to terms with this reality. The future will be shaped not in London, but in Lagos, Accra, Nairobi, Johannesburg, and beyond. The question is, will Britain choose immunity, apologize, and build a new relationship based on respect, or cling to the ghost of empire? Because one truth is clear, the age of African submission is over. This is Africa's time. Thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to like this video and share your thoughts in the comment box below. Until next time, cheers and have a good one.